Hello, hello, and welcome to my thought on this very busy Monday. It is a very busy Monday. One of the things that I worry about with this pandemic is how we're forcing children into a very bitter reality. And I know that the most important thing as a child, and actually as an adult, is to believe in the magic that there is in this world. And there is a great deal of magic. When I was a child, I wished on every star. I believed I blew out all the candles on my cake, and I sent up endless pleas for uh, puppies or picture books or permission to sleep at Marcia Zimmerman's because her mama made blueberry pancakes for breakfast. And when I lost a tooth, I put it under my pillow, and I knew that the tooth fairy would take my tooth and replace it with a dime. That was 10 cents. That's what we got in 1942. When I was 9 years old, this fantasy was taken from me, and this belief, and I felt as injured as if I'd been shot. World War II was raging at the time, and we were living with rationing and no sugar and running around collecting papers and tin cans. We would sit in our classroom and we would knit Afghan squares for the soldiers, and we would have air raids where we would have to hide under the desk or run outside in seconds. There were no buses, and I had to hike to my piano lesson, which was about 3 miles. I was 9 years old. And when I was 9, I was losing molars. And when my mother would tie a string around my tooth and pull that molar out, I would endure that little twinge of pain without a sound because I knew the rewards to come. In those days, you could buy a box of Cracker Jacks with a dime and get a prize in the bottom. You could buy a yo-yo, or you could get an ice cream cone, all for a dime. On the night that I lost my first molar, I put it under the pillow, and that night I was awakened by my father rustling under my pillow. And because the the night was long and my father was tired and it was dark in my room, my father put a penny instead of a dime. Copper had become scarce at that time, and our dimes were made of aluminum instead of copper. And so my father could not see the difference, and he put a penny instead of a dime under my pillow. I discovered his mistake as soon as he left, and I was devastated because first of all, I realized there is no tooth fairy, and secondly, I realized I wasn't going to get that dime that I was so sure I was planning what I was going to buy with that dime. So the next morning, when I woke up, I came downstairs and I slammed the penny on the kitchen counter, and I said to my mother, "Why did you tell me that the tooth fairy gave me a dime when you knew all along that wasn't true?" And my mother said to me, "Lynn Ruth," she said, "it's people that make the magic happen in this world. Do you remember Aunt Bess Terman?" And I nodded. I said, "Yes, I remember her." She told me the story of how my Aunt Bess and my Uncle Max had prayed and prayed for a child. Because remember, she's talking to a 9-year-old child. She said that she prayed and prayed for a child, and by the time they realized that Aunt Bess couldn't have them, they were too old to adopt, and no agency would give them a child. My Aunt Bess worked as a volunteer in a children's hospital, and one day she saw a little boy who was so malnourished and so wasted he had tubes sticking out of him. And one of the other nurses pointed to him and she said, "That kid's not going to last a month, and there's not a thing wrong with him. We found him in the trunk of a car. He's terrified and he won't eat a thing." My Aunt Bess walked over to that little boy and she picked him up and she held him to her heart. And she stroked his little bright curls. He had bright, shiny curls. And she could feel him quiver. He was so frightened. And she looked at the nurse and she said, "I'm going to take him and I'm going to make him well." In those days, you could do a thing like that without endless paperwork. And within an hour, my Aunt Bess, became the legal guardian of that little boy. She named him Bernard. She sat with him every night and listened to his nightmares. She fed him. She fed him with an eyedropper so that he would eat, and she never left his side. And by the time I became aware of Bernie Turman, he was a skinny little guy who loved to laugh and play hopscotch with the rest of us around the block. Bess did a magic thing with that child, said my mother. She saved him with love alone. She said, when your father put that coin under your pillow, he wasn't trying to make you believe a lie. He was showing you the power real people have to make magic in this world. I stirred my Rice Krispies and I looked at her and I said, I suppose you're going to tell me there's no magic elf in this cereal to make it go snap, crackle, and pop. You're going to tell me there's no fairy in ivory soap to make it float. Well, said my mother, it's all in how you look at it. Somebody invented a way to make your cereal talk to you, and somebody thought of a way to make your bath bar float in the tub. Those are the real magicians and magic people of the world. Lynn Ruth, she said, can you understand that? And I said, yes, I can. But what I can't understand is who owes me 9 cents. And thank you very much for joining me for my Monday thought.